Namaskar, friends. This is not an old story. This is not just about war, bows and swords. This is not the voice of Arjuna. It is the voice of your soul. Arjuna Vishada Yog, a chapter where the war starts outside, but the defeat has already happened inside. This is the moment when Arjuna's bow slipped from his hand. Because for the first time, he looked inside himself. He broke down, cried, got scared, because there was no enemy in front of him. It was his own people in front of him, and this is what happens with us too. When we have to stand against our own people, when we get stuck between right and relations, then we all become Arjuna. This is Kurukshetra, where the fight outside is between two sides, Pandavas and Kauravas, Dharma and Adharma. But the real war is not happening there. The real war has started in Arjuna's heart, because standing in front of him are his own people. Bhishma Pitama, Guru Dronacharya, brothers, family. And he thinks, can I shoot arrows at them? Is this Dharma, or is this Adharma, which seems like Dharma to me? Now think, have you ever faced such a situation? Where you thought, if I tell the truth, my own people will get angry with me. Or, this work is wrong, but if I leave it, how will the house run? Or, which should I choose between truth and relationships? This is Arjuna's sorrow, and this is the dilemma of every human being. Gita does not tell us what we should do. It says, first ask yourself, who are you? What is your Dharma? Does what you are doing bring inner peace, or is it just fulfilling external responsibilities? Arjuna Vishad Yoga teaches us that Vishad, confusion, guilt, fear, is not a weakness. Instead, it is the first step towards self-realization. Because only when we are really confused, we start listening to the inner voice. The first chapter of the Gita does not give any solution. It is just a mirror which says, look at your fear first. Only then will you be able to understand Krishna's words. If you too have ever been scared, confused, broken like Arjuna, then the Gita is not just a book, it is a map of your mind. Subscribe to Summary Junction, because here the Gita will not remain a shloka, but will go with you as an experience of life. In 18 chapters, we will learn this, how each chapter is connected to your life, how each shloka can become the answer to your confusion. The Gita does not make life easy, it makes you strong enough to face any difficult situation. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where your heart says, don't do it, but responsibility says, now you have to do it? This is the moment when two forces are tugging at each other within a person. On one side is our heart, which is full of emotions, love, compassion, fear, attachment. And on the other side is responsibility, which says that now we have to go beyond emotions and fulfill our duty. Have you ever seen yourself breaking down in an attempt to not hurt anyone? Has it ever happened that you have compromised with your own truth for fear of losing someone close to you? This is the inner Kurukshetra, where there are no swords, no armies, but the fight is equally difficult. Arjuna was also such a person. He was a warrior. But when his own people were standing in front of him, brother, guru, grandfather, uncle, his hands started trembling. Arjuna was not a god. He was a human being like you and me, whose heart had love, affection, belongingness. He was used to war, but that day, standing in the battlefield, he saw that the people he had to fight with were not strangers, but his own. They were the same people from whom he found love, learnt, with whom he shared the moments of his life. And then his hands started trembling, the bow fell, he was broken from within. Because this war was not just external, it was a fight between his emotions and duty. So what do we learn from this? That real bravery is not in wielding the sword, but when we are able to gather the strength to take the right decision by collecting the broken parts within us. When the heart says something else, but life demands something else, the decisions we make then determine the direction of our soul. Arjuna is in all of us. Every time we have to make a difficult decision, every time we have to go through our own people towards truth and Dharma, we become Arjuna. This is what the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, that the greatest battle is not outside, but within. We often think that life's greatest challenges are in the outside world, career, relationships, society, or circumstances. But when we look closely, we find that the real struggle is taking place within our mind and soul. Arjuna's dilemma on the battlefield of Dharma Yuddha was not just about winning or losing a battle. He was up against his own people, his teachers, brothers, and loved ones. His hands began to shake, his mind became agitated, and he put down his bow. This scene symbolizes the inner conflict we all go through at one time or another. When we are torn between relationships, responsibilities, and the voice of the soul, we all become Arjuna. Just think, when we stand in front of a decision where on one side are our relations, expectations of parents, friends, spouse, society, and on the other side is the call of our soul, then what happens? We become Arjuna. Sometimes we feel that living up to the expectations of others is our Dharma. Sometimes we feel that listening to the voice of our conscience is the true path. In this confusion, we are neither able to move forward, nor can we go back. This is the real battle of Kurukshetra, which goes on within every human being. So what does this shloka teach us? Courage to look within ourselves, recognizing the voice of conscience and soul, and above all, understanding Dharma, not only from the rules of society, but from our innermost being. The dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna is not just the story of Mahabharata, it is the story of every human being who is torn between right and wrong, who is torn between his duty and his inner peace. And finally, when Arjuna listens, understands and knows himself, only then he is ready for the battle, to win the battle, not the external one, but the one within himself. Imagine, there is a son. His family has been running a business for years, which does not fall under the ambit of law or morality, perhaps tax evasion, adulteration, or some other kind of unethical activity. He has grown up in the same business since childhood. Now that he has grown up, he has started seeing the truth. He has started understanding that what he is doing is against his conscience. But then a voice comes inside him. If I leave, how will the house run? Papa will be sad, he just wants my support. Am I running away from my duty? What is Dharma, to run the house or to be truthful? This is his Kurukshetra, where he gets trapped, just like Arjuna was trapped. This was what Arjuna had in front of him. Standing in front of him were Guru Drona, from whom he had learnt archery, Bhishma Pitama, from whom he had received his blessings, his brothers, family, and blood relations. And on the other side was Dharma, justice, and the call of the soul. He thinks, if I shoot arrows at my own people, will I become adhami? If I leave the war, will I be called a coward? What is my Dharma? To maintain my relationships or to support the truth? This dilemma of Arjuna is not just that of the Pandavas, it is the dilemma of every human being, of every person who gets entangled between what is right and what is close to him. This story teaches us that Dharma is not just action, it is the courage to stand up for the truth. Duty is not only towards others, but also towards one's own soul. And most importantly, to recognize attachment, whether it is of relationships or fear, when it starts to prevent us from the truth, is also a kind of knowledge. So what should that son do? Maybe one day he will stand in front of his father and say, Papa, I will do everything for you, but not on this path. If I remain silent, I will remain your son. But perhaps I will not be able to look myself in the eye. This is Arjuna's decision, to waver, to think, to pause, and then to listen to the voice of one's soul like Krishna. Gita says, before taking every big decision, we have to look inside ourselves. Because the fight that is visible outside is actually a reflection of our inner fight. Wherever we are in life, choosing a career, maintaining a relationship, finding the courage to speak the truth, or making a change, the right decision comes only when we listen to the inner voice. The Gita does not say that life will be easy, it says that when the choices in life are difficult, stop, calm down, and ask yourself, is what I am about to do in accordance with my Dharma? Am I retreating because of fear or because of prudence? Am I trapped in delusion or am I connected to truth? Sometimes our Dharma is hidden behind fear. This line says a lot. Often the path that we fear the most, that very path becomes the litmus test of our soul. Because Dharma is not always easy. Sometimes it demands the strength to say no to our own people. Sometimes the courage to speak the truth. And sometimes the courage to stand alone against the whole world. Arjuna's fear, to let go of the bow, to avoid the war, was actually a form of his delusion. But when he looked within, when he heard the voice of Krishna, that is, his conscience, then he realized that running away from fear is not Dharma. Rather, understanding it and moving forward is Dharma. So what does the Gita teach us? That one day or the other, Kurukshetra comes in everyone's life. There is no Krishna from outside, he is within us, our conscience, our courage, and the true voice of our soul. The Gita teaches us not to fight fear, but to understand and overcome fear. And finally, Dharma is not a rule imposed from outside. Dharma is that which is connected to inner peace. Have you ever been afraid like Arjuna? Have you ever trembled before a decision? Have you ever been confused between your own relationships, responsibilities, and the voice of the soul? So believe me, this video is not just a story. This is the same voice echoing within you, which you perhaps forgot to hear. Because Arjuna is in all of us, every time we are afraid to speak the truth, every time we are torn between attachment and duty, every time we remain silent while the soul screams and says something else, that is where the Gita begins. Subscribe to Summary Junction, because the Gita is not just an old book, it is a mirror of today's man. It is not just a collection of verses, it is the answer to every question that arises within you. How to face every fear, how to understand the attachment in every relationship, and how to recognize the inner voice before every big decision. This is what the Gita teaches. If you have ever wondered, am I doing the right thing? Is this my Dharma? Then the next Gita story is for you. Now it is your turn. Do you also want to walk on the journey from Arjuna to Krishna? Do you also want to get answers from within? So join Summary Junction, where not stories, the soul speaks. If you liked this chapter of the Gita, then comment, "I want the second chapter." Your one comment will inspire me. Thank you.